I don't know about you, but I love Adobe products. It's not by accident that these products are leading the market of graphic editing software, and marketing, and document management, and whatever else. Behind this software are the best solutions that formed how we approach modern digital artistry. Also, I am an active user of several products of this company, while I managed to try a lot of the rest. When I discovered Photoshop, I did not have any plans to become a graphic designer. I just started figuring the program out. The process of exploring itself was interesting and I like to spend much time in it, instead of video games, my main occupation at that time. The program allowed me to create something by myself, and at the same time it gave me bigger capability, like I was using some sort of Robocop costume. Today my main occupation is animation, and I work primarily in Adobe After Effects, and not only. I also accumulated some thoughts, which I would like to share with people who develop this software, things that I would prioritize if I was them, at least taking into consideration my personal experience. Some of the issues I would call problems, others are ideas, thoughts, tips, call it whatever you want. I didn't classify them and just made a list without any particular order. In any case, it is an attempt to make the products of your company even better from those who have already chosen them and think that they are the best. My suggestions are related to 3 programs that I use most often, but all of them of course can be applied to any other products. For example, issues related to Photoshop are just as relevant for Illustrator and InDesign. I am simply one of those old schoolers who still use Photoshop and won't stop using it. I declare that your puny attempts to separate us will never lead to any success, and harden our hearts in the fiery fight for freedom and multi-purpose toolbox. And yes, there's an important remark. I do not know everything and I didn't spend too much time looking for ideas that could mate into this video. It is possible that some of my ideas are already implemented or solved, which will make me look like a fool. However, I think that it's better to look like a fool and learn something than instead of remaining completely motionless and silent. This is why video is open for everyone and I encourage people to comment and share your opinions. And one more disclaimer, I'm sorry for my errors in regards to my pronunciation and vocabulary. English is not my native language, but I have basic skills. And I have internet. All I need. The first thing that I feel is missing in Photoshop is font sorting, most importantly by language. It may not be an issue for people who are using only one language, English. However, to write anything in other language, you need to use a different font and you have to click randomly on the list of fonts to find ones that could be used with my language. Some of these fonts I have already memorized. As of right now, there is no way to sort fonts by language or group them as you like. Handwritten fonts should be also separated from regular ones. Fonts with bold could be also grouped separately, and I would spend quite some time to put them in different groups if you give me that ability. I don't need those favorite fonts. I don't think in favorites. Currently implemented filters did not help me even once. They are somewhat strange and it feels useless. Spelling. Live spelling check is something I can't even... It's such an obvious function implemented nearly everywhere where you can see an I-beam. However, it's not present in Photoshop. Very strange. And it is very important. Over the course of years, using a computer with autocorrect and spelling check is a habit. We are not using to proofreading. Whatever is good or not, it's our reality. Spell check is not intended for illiterate people. It is for inattentive people. People who copy-paste texts without proofreading them. People like, I don't know, graphic designers. The text block is always rectangular. Oh, I obviously can create my own shape with blackjack and hookers and insert my text there, but it will be a completely different object. Why not to make every text block a contour that we could edit immediately after creating? We can bend it or create new dots. It would be very convenient. I would like to be able to merge content of several text layers so that their contents flow from one to another. And don't even try to tell me that this is impossible. I know that it's already implemented in InDesign. It is such nuance for you and a huge deal for those who work with lots of images at once but does not like to memorize their names. What do you think about such tab? Why can't we change properties of shapes after we creating them? It's not only about rounded rectangle. It took some time to implement this feature for rounded rectangles. However, you should not stop. A polygon has many properties. I see that. I want them to be in the one tab so that I could alter them after creating. Moreover, I think we can smooth corners of any shape using the same method as the rounded rectangle. After seeing these inside ones, I cannot live without it. Controlling the stroke width is so cool. It should be implemented in Illustrator as well and replace the current, mostly useless system. For my own personal gain, I would like to see this feature in Photoshop as well. Can't live without it. The ruler instrument should be different. A true ruler that we deserve. It should be placed on the working surface, much like layers. A ruler should have multiple markers and it should have properties like any other object, so that we could adjust it for our slick hands. Just like in physical world, a ruler is just a reference for precision in work. Bring back the adjustment layer. It was such a weird decision to replace the adjustment layer with a ton of separate layers, each with a specific function. It feels like downgrade. I have never met anyone who defended this change, while the most common reason I used the adjustment layer myself is blurring. An adjustment layer with a mask is a very convenient tool that can add blur whatever you want with no irreversible changes. Now I'm just frustrated. Tabs. Very often, when working with Photoshop, designers use graphic tablets. I think everyone agrees that the way you interact with a program via a mouse or a pen dramatically changes user experience, and tablet users obviously should be able to use some rules of UI design for tablets. You can implement a lot of interesting features that are already in place in some graphic apps for iOS and Android. These features could be optional and never affect people who use only mouse. For example, tabs that hide behind buttons can be hidden with a single tap on the working surface. Why can't you hide some of tabs outside of the screen and make them drop down? You can call it Tablet Workplace, and don't forget to make call buttons bigger. Another important lesson that we need to learn from apps, it is actually something important for all products, not only Photoshop. Interface animation. I hope no one will say that it is a nuance. Interface attractiveness is an important feature that affects whether people want to choose your software. Attractiveness of Adobe interfaces are not the least reason so many people use them, and you still has room to grow. The next useful feature is perspective grid. People do not draw in Illustrator, they draw in Photoshop. Don't ignore us! Don't fight with us, we are not your enemies. Perspective grids should be implemented in Photoshop, and it should be more editable. This fucking window. Why is it exists? Why it has no tick? Do not show this shit anymore. Or why don't you make it not annoying like any other message? Come on, create a normal eraser. A normal eraser is a background eraser. A normal eraser is smooth eraser, not a pixel art demolisher. Why not show the currently selected color on a pointer? You have a contour, central elements, and many other elements that could show a selected color. I always wanted to make this rectangle bigger. It seems that color has nothing to appear, it is solid. However, you can't ignore the adaptive nature of color perception. The rectangle is squeezed in an environment that makes it hard to see the color correctly. It is also important so that we could recall a previous color. This function is present in pop-up window, but why only there? When using the gradient scale effect, a color picker works only with selective layer. Why? Just why? I want to have an opportunity to lock a certain channel when choosing a color. It is especially useful when working with CMYK palette. A lot of things that you create in Photoshop ends up in printing. I hope you know what print ready means. It would be great to make the process of pre-press preparation as painless and simple as possible. Brushes. I mostly use brushes downloaded from the internet, although I don't have any significant issues with the standard brush kit. Aside of those clunky attempts to make brushes realistic timber. A standard brush kit does what it should. It introduces users to all important aspects of adjusting brushes. That's why I am all for those legendary leaves. Leaves tell you important message. However, I have some issues with adjustment of brushes. They look like a demo version of something that will come soon. For example, why noise is just a checkbox? Why can't you adjust it? Soft edges sound like something with large customization potential, much like many other properties. Textures. First of all, no one uses textures, because in order to use them, you need to somehow save them, despite expecting to use any image when pushing the Load Patterns button. You don't have to use any specialized techniques to create these patterns. It can be any image, so allow us to use any image with this button. Next, all these standard textures. Do you know that there are less people who seen this than those who have seen a Bigfoot? Firstly, for no reason they are in this separate place. Secondly, when you open them, a window pops up and insinuates, but doesn't say, that you may accidentally delete previous textures if you use new ones. Everyone knows that pop-up windows never appear from nowhere. They appear to prevent something permanent, like deleting something. It is absolutely unnecessary here. And put all textures in the same screen, come on! Burn tool and dodge tool can work only with midtones, shadows and highlights. Who decides what these ranges include? I want to decide it. It is my picture, only I can know it. And if I want to use dodge and burn with all range, I should have this opportunity. Filters. Many filters are not in the filter gallery. Why? How are they different from those in the gallery? Usually I automatically go for those in the gallery and delay experimenting with other filters for apparent reasons. In the gallery, everything is visualized and integral. Everything is just a click away. Using other filters is like using different program. In order to pixelate layer or oil paint filter, you need a different window. These are filters similar for those in the gallery, so why they so far away from users? I'm not against to separate window for liquify, it deserves it. Blurring deserves it. By the way, you can group all blur filters in a blur gallery. Additionally, the filter tab has many things that you can't really call filters. For example, flame filter. Obviously, it creates a new object instead of filtering an image, so after using it you are terrified as you realize that flames are placed over the layer. It's a new object that should appear on a new layer. I only mentioned a couple of examples, but there are many of them in the filters tab. You made the face-aware liquify options, and it's great, but why did you stop on that? In addition to it, you need to add something like body-aware liquify options. It can't be that you did not think about it. Program can make mistakes, as it does with a face. We understand, not a big deal. I could help the program to determine whether my image is a body and what is a face. Apparently, Photoshop lacks a universal skin toolkit. It's not for professionals. Pros will do everything with their own hands, chasing after quality. However, amateurs downloading Photoshop to work with their photos for Instagram will use this feature regularly. A small inconsistency, though I understand why it exists. Blend mode is something related to layer style. It is copied alongside other styles when using copy layer style. However, the rasterize layer style feature does not consider blend mode as style and does not affect it. It doesn't even allow you to adjust it if the layer style is manifested through opacity, channels, or blend mode. I understand that rasterizing blend mode is a complicated fantasy. The way it looks depends on underlying layers. However, the theme that layer style is not rasterized is against the software own logic. We lack a feature to choose all layers in the Layer tab. Why do it? For example, if you want to create an action that will affect specific layer types, you will hit a dead end. Filters on the Layers panel can help you, but they are useless when you need to create an action. At the same time, a string choose effect, select all layers should be easily understood by Action Engine. Save for web. This toolbox still exists in Photoshop with the tag Legacy. It exists because it's cool, so maybe it is time to make Save for Web new or without any tag and add, for example, normal compression, not the one that creates creepy footages, but one that actually extends to the potential of many online services. Also, I have another fantasy. I would like to add metadata to images when I save them. It could be such a useful thing. Designers working in printing are furious that Photoshop has Save for Web, but not Save for Printing, with its own useful set of features. Automatically creating a seamless pattern, it's not that hard, right? You don't need a neural network for that. You only need to conduct a couple of transformations while accounting for edges. Many people will be happy to have this function. 3D engine. Remove it. Please, why do you need it at all? Leave the texture mapping and expand the feature to make it complete by adding occlusion, roughness, etc. Why does 3D engine in Photoshop have more features than the one in After Effects? Beg you, remove it. Make it into a full-fledged 3D editor. And here I want to raise an important topic. Apparently, to everyone, Adobe needs a 3D editor. I realize it, you realize it, we realize it long ago. I think way too long ago. I believe that you missed all deadlines and all potential niches in the 3D editing market. However, I won't give up. I will be waiting. I will be caring and refreshing the news page on your website. I think it will be awesome when it happens. On that day, the word Adobe will replace the word graphics in our language, and we will all merge together in a single act of ecstasy right there in the presentation showroom, much like in the perfume movie. An application that would allow us to seamlessly switch from drawing texture maps to rendering them to finalize the editing in After Effects. Honestly speaking, I have such wet dreams from time to time. I hope someday it will become reality. We all understand that Adobe needs a 3D editor. And not these seriously nice toys, but no. After Effects is a place where I spend the vast majority of my time and always find something new for me. I like it so much that I do here the majority of work that people leave for Adobe Premiere. If Adobe After Effects had at least a minimal toolbox for sound editing, I would stop using Premiere. Well, I understand that it's silly to ask for such changes, so let's move down along the list. I miss an option to group objects alongside the pre-compose option. Sometimes I want to unite objects without hiding them and limiting them with edges of new composition. Even if you can't apply effects to a new group, I will accept the feature, though I do not see a reason to leave us without this function. I want to move my layers to a composition by drag-dropping, like this. Wouldn't it be cool if with the text tool you could rename layers? I want to change blend mode with arrows like in Photoshop. It's not hard to realize, I think. When editing speed curves on the same point on the timeline, I can't choose the one I need. It would be great to be able to browse through them with, for example, click of mouse wheel or any other way. Presets for animation speed. Why are they implemented in AnimaCC but not in After Effects? In After Effects they must be implemented on much bigger scale. When using effects related to speed, they are not shown anyway amongst layers on the timeline. Maybe you need to move those effects for this window in expanded version of it. Maybe this way the composition could shorten when speed up. And what if the characteristics that I never touched was gray and only after editing they become blue? In that case, I would always see which characteristics are default and which are not. These two functions, they are important and very difficult to find. Get them out of here and show them to people. For real, you need a separate tab for an anchor point like it looks in one of the plugins. Shut down bridge. Finish it, please. Create a simple tab for templates similar to other tabs. If plugin creators can create adequate tabs and preview, you also can. I believe in you. Let me pull sliders until I get bored. This applies to all Adobe products. Everything is run with Wiggler. Firstly, you need to add randomness and allow us to adjust it. Right now, I can't adjust anything. You apply it, if you don't like, you undo it. The best solution is to implement bounce without keyframes as an effect. Apply it to layer and adjust it so that it would work on the whole timeline of the layer, just like flicker in optical flares or twitch. If you want to transform wiggle into animation with keyframes, do it with this button. I can't remove track mate from the layer if there are no layers in front of it. It's bad. I think that binding a layer to a parent one should be a toggle function. This feature needs to have its own key points, and we need a feature to bind a single layer to different ones while creating a new animation for each. I want to divide any animation to frames using right click. Oh, how it irritates me, getting through the pins created by Puppet Pin tool. They seem like they've been hiding intentionally. I thank you that you automatically create key points so that I could select them with the U button, but it is not as elegant solution as simply do not hide them in the list of effects. And key pins don't need to be created automatically. I may forget about them, fix a specific point, and unwillingly create a new animation. Here's something that I would love to create automatically, a null object when creating a camera. Maybe not by default, but there is enough room in this window to place a checkbox. Are you sure that layers is a suitable word for this tab? Wouldn't objects fit it better? Add underscoring and strike through to text editor. You don't need it that often, but when you do, you can't believe that you're unable to do it. I want to animate numbers without expressions. I'm not a programmer. It would be great if text bonded to a path did not create empty spaces on the curves. Optionally, it is just as relevant for Photoshop and other programs. I want to bind texts to other masks. If not masks, then shapes. The same I can say about effects like stroke, which should be generated from a shape, not mask. For example, several layers can use a contour from a single shape. How I managed to live without this feature, I don't know. Why do we have two shapes? Rectangle and rounded rectangle. It's the same figure that must have a round option, like any other shape. Same thing relates to Photoshop. You need to merge together the fill and choosing the color filling. Why choosing the color still requires a separate window, a window that I have to move every single time to see what changed and how. Maybe we could also create a key points in that window. We need a feature to identify the location of stroke of shapes, inner strokes, outer strokes, just like in Photoshop. It's for precision, don't ask. After Effects strongly need object multiplier and subsequent control of them. I want to say cloner because this feature was well implemented in Cinema 4D. We need a feature to place a large amount of objects without trashing the layer list. And random access memory. And my memory. Particle world/systems. Firstly, we could add a feature to emit objects, not texturized polygons, real objects. Shapes, layers. Also, secondly, adding turbulence and scattering to the effect could be not bad, so as ability to freeze particles. And thirdly, emitter is an object. It should be in the layer tab instead of distorted space inside a flat 2D layer. When using a glow effect, a shade is being generated. I think there is no need to explain why it is a problem. Reptile makes fat borders with layer mask. It would not be a problem if I could control position of the reflections, which is what this effect needs. A big chunk of effects from the distort group should be adapted to object or layer borders and not whole composition. How am I supposed to animate this object? Or here? When you pre-compose a couple of layers, program must memorize its duration. I am mad by the situation when you copy-paste some layers from one composition to another with smaller duration and the layer disappears beyond its borders. To run it back I must change duration of the composition in composition settings and return it back again. Can we prevent the layer from hiding abroad? Camera tracker. It works 1 in 3 times. It does not understand cuts. That's something I can deal with. But do you know that I cannot stand? I can't prepare each new video for a camera tracker beforehand outside of the project that I'm currently working in, since the tracker does not understand when I cut the video. I also can't stand that it demands a composition to correspond to the size of an analyzed video. I will not adjust the whole project for a single video. K-light should be moved to noise and grain group. I think my sarcasm should be understood. Chromatic aberrations. Channel blur should have a feature to apply a mask on it. We catastrophically need an aberration effect like in Magic Bullet. It is simply a must-have if you want to play with aberrations. We also need an effect that allows us to move channels. Why don't we still have it? It's a mystery to me. After Effects needs full toolkit for frame animation. You can say there is Adobe Animate for this reason, but what if I ask you, in which program would you do frame-by-frame animation over video? What Adobe product can provide convenient toolkit for it, huh? It should be After Effects. Well, at least let me draw on the adjustment layer with the previous visible, at least this favor. Can't live without it. Soundtrack. Sound in After Effects is needed to adjust everything you do to this sound. Usually it's one pure track that you drop on the main composition, but if you need to fix something inside the pre-composed composition, then the sound will not help you, because the sound layer now is like any other layer. If it's not in the current composition, then you not hear it, and you have to or throw the audio track in a whole composition and arrange them by timing, or check it after each action with the sound from the main composition and stretching the process at least twice. Here's my solution. The soundtrack does not have to be a regular layer, it must be omnipresent. At a minimum, give me the opportunity to hear it in pre-composed compositions too. As you see, many changes that are needed in Adobe products are implemented in plugins. There's why these plugins exist, because users quickly realize that we need. The best method of obtaining ideas to improve your products is to analyze plugins and their success. Captain Obvious, you will say. However, I'm not 100% sure that everyone understands it, so I want to sound this obviousness just in case. I'm afraid that I don't have the same amount of ideas for Adobe Premiere Pro, simply because I don't use the program as frequently. However, I have something to say. The first thing that brings me pain in my bottom, why, contrary to other programs, Premiere does not turn the pointer into a hand tool that could move the timeline when you hold down spacebar. It is painful to move along the timeline with a slider. I tried all possible settings, made my own shortcuts, but they don't work as I need. The same goes for the preview window. It is impossible to navigate it without scaling with the mouse wheel and hand tool. Slider. When the slider becomes too small, it's impossible to use it with precision. It needs arrows to move step by step. And not sharp arrows, they should work smoothly. It is very annoying that key points get lost behind object borders. Why can't we leave them visible or maybe toggle their visibility with a separate button? New version of a shape tool works with, I don't know, control button? Why I can't stretch effect windows? Stop this! I don't want to search a new place to save file and then clean it up every time when I start working. Premiere is a program that I often use for a minute just to cut a small video and then render it immediately. I don't have anything to save. Don't make me trash my computer space. Even if I have to create more temporary files, I'm all for it. You can wipe temp files with a single button. At the same time, a mountain of trash that I create in new folders every time because the program memorized my previous choice, I will never clean up. Like everyone, I often forget about the sounds placed outside of video before putting them in the right places, and after render I find 2 hours black screen in the end of the video. So, can program remind me before render that I have sounds with no video materials? Clip back and clip forward can be more versatile to select a section, for example with a control button. Please add a plus to each side to add tracks. These buttons will be used very often. Text editing is an operation that you don't need to do in a separate window, you agree? Because now I have a feeling that I open another program to edit titles. There is one life hack with the ripple delete that must be a regular feature, very useful feature. Morph cut. A wonderful idea, a genius idea, however it still needs polishing. Maybe I'm not professional in sound editing in Premiere and I can't understand something, but I have to confess something with you. Pitch shifter slows my sounds, and it does not affect the duration on the timeline. If my sound is too short, its last fragment disappears in sort of editing limb, and there's no way to get it back. I do not mind if this effect will change the speed, then I will pull it up with my own hands, but let the length of the track to change with the effect. Though now pitch shifter is dangerous. I want to pre-compose, or nest, you can call it whatever you want. I want to nest materials of several tracks. A necessary toolbox for amateurs to work with skin, identical to what I described before when talking about Photoshop. What we want in Premiere Pro. It feels like I've addressed everything that I was be able to remember to this day, but I may come up with another list, especially because I encourage you to comment and suggest new ways to improve our beloved products. Once again, I'm sorry if some of my suggestions were groundless and there is an obvious solution or setting that I missed or I messed up and was wrong. Write about it in the comment section. I will be happy to learn from you. I hope that someone from Adobe will watch this video. I try to find relevant contacts to send them my video to. It may seem dumb, but I genuinely want to help with some constructive feedback. As for now, I say goodbye to all of you and thank you for your time. Bye!